Okay, welcome to the Scotch Talks podcast. I'm your host, Scott. Today's episode, we have Renee McKenna. She's an artist, public artist, therapist, healer, and now an author. Anything else that you are? You're a mother.
I'm a mother. I'm a crazy person.
She's a crazy person.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Yes.
It's very exciting to be here. I just had my book release party last weekend and you came. Thank you. With about 80 other people. It was amazing.
Yep.
So amazing. I reached out to it was the time to reach out to like everyone in every contact list that I had. I gave myself permission to do that and people really showed up. It was beautiful.
Was there somebody that you were surprised who showed up that you were not expecting?
There was like 3 people that I about fell down on the floor.
I saw one of them.
Yeah, you saw one of them. It was a friend I hadn't seen in like 5 years.
Wow.
It was really powerful. And she came with her kids and her husband. It was really amazing to see her. A beautiful reunion. And there's a couple that I married, actually.
What?
Yeah, I did couples counseling with them and I ended up marrying them.
So you're an ordained minister as well?
I am.
What?
We did that about 5 years ago and they came with their girl who's 3, which was amazing.
Oh, the little cute girl.
The little cute little baby.
Oh my gosh.
I was so, because she said, as a matter of fact, when I was talking, her name's Lindy, the little one. And they said, there's a picture of Renee on the wall from our wedding, right? So, it felt like she was a little bit of a spirit baby, like a little niece or something. Yeah, it was. And then, just people from all different areas of my life. So people love to be supportive. Mm-hmm. People are actually very generous when you are able to receive from them. And that's a lot of what this process is about.
Before we get into the process of making the book, which is what I want to talk about today, how was it having a release party and having those people show up for not just you, but something that you've created?
That's a great question. It was wonderful, I have to say. And I thought about it. What I realized was that, we live in a culture where everything's a to-do list. And we're in this constant to do. In fact, one of my clients that was here had said to me a couple of weeks before, I feel like my life is one long to-do list and the final checkbox is dying. Mm. And so, we can do that. We can just be in achieving and producing and doing and not actually be with the process and be here now to enjoy what's happening. And I realized after I got the final version of the book. It's up on Amazon. And I was just getting into the next to-do list. Okay, well, now I need to promote the book. And how do I, work with this email software? And how do I, create my own podcast and create content and all. Right. And someone said to me, this is a really big achievement. And I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And then I realized, I need to do what I tell my clients to do, what I tell my people to do, right? Which is to be in the journey and enjoy what's happening and really, suck the juice out of the orange that's in front of you right now. Mm-hmm. And so once I gave myself permission to do that, and, I have worked a lot on receiving, I think that being able to give authentically and in a healthy way, you have to be able to receive. Okay. Otherwise, everything's an exhale and you're going to suffocate, right? If you're only, that is my own deficit, is that I tend to give to a fault. And there's a whole thing behind that can be its own pathology. And so part of the healthy process for me is to be able to give and receive. So, I really intentionally was in a place of receiving. I consider this book a gift to the world, but to be able to receive allows me to be nourished in a place to be able to give.
Right. How did you learn how to receive?
Excellent question. I think it's been the process of really getting exhausted and depleted over and over again. It became very clear. It has been clear to me for a long time that that's like my deficit, is that I'll work myself to death and get completely exert myself to a fault and then get exhausted and then, ultimately sometimes get resentful or stop what I'm doing completely and not be able to continue it. So I was really working with that already in my life, particularly as I approached this place of bringing the book Allies and Demons into the world and bringing this work. I mean, I'm kind of stepping out into my ambition in my own professional life for the first time at 55. So I expect 55 to 75 to really be the most productive time of my life. So there's, I've spent a lot of time in my own personal growth work looking at what's going to stop me from being, what are my deficits? What's going to stop me from being able to do what I really want to do? And not being able to receive is part of that, because you can only handle being depleted for so long.
Two things. I knew you're 55 right now.
Yeah.
I probably met you when you were like 53,
Correct.
53 and a half. I didn't know another Renee that wasn't so driven. Like, for those of you listening, like, you are just go, 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 create. But one thing that I do love about you is that when you say that you're going to do something, like, it gets done.
Yeah, I don't fuck around.
Yeah. I love that. It's inspiring. And you brought up your deficits. What other deficits challenge you?
So I have to say, from a professional standpoint, well, even in a personal standpoint, overgiving is definitely at the top of the list.
Okay. By overgiving, are you ever afraid of being taken advantage of as well?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. I believe that all good service serves the server, and I think that all acts go recognized by the universe. So even though an individual person might take advantage of me, even that experience, I have some fun stories about that. I've been married twice, and my first husband, he's dead now. That's why he's not my husband anymore. My first husband was a pathological liar and a con man. Oh, he was so handsome, though, and very charming, but couldn't tell the truth or hold a job or stay sober. So it was a problem. But so there was a lot of being taken advantage of on an exterior level, and he's one of the greatest teachers I ever had in my whole life. Because it was in that process that I realized I had handpicked him. I had actually been engaged twice before and not decided to go through with it. And the most unhealthy person I ever had in my life was the one that I said I do with. That's not a coincidence. Like, oh, Renee, what's that about? That this is the person you would choose. Because I really deeply believe that there's no circumstance in our life by coincidence. Particularly relationships. Like, we do handpick those, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So whatever that dynamic is, and we've talked about this before, that my external reality is often a mirror of my internal reality. Okay. And so, what came out of that process of actually being taken advantage of, I mean, I ended up in bankruptcy court because of him and all kinds of crazy stuff. Right?
How old were you when this is going on?
In my late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. He was someday I'll write a movie about it, because it's almost unbelievable. But once I realized that I had volunteered for that and took responsibility for my part, then I could actually really learn from what was happening and change what was happening. And, for me, a lot of that was about my own really driven will. And I wanted this relationship to be a certain way, regardless of what was actual reality. And I was going to make it be that way. And it didn't work out. My will only goes so far. And there was tremendous learning and humility that came out of that relationship. And probably, again, the biggest thing is to realize that anything that's happening in my life, I am actually 100% responsible for on the deepest level. That's my opinion. And, we always have Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. He says we always have three choices. We can accept it, we can ask for it to change, or we can leave. And now as children, we don't have those choices, which is a lot of the reason I'm a therapist, because most of us have these experiences of being powerless, of not getting our needs met, or having things done to us that were harmful, or whatever that configuration is of wounding that we have when we don't have those choices. But once we hit a certain age, 15, 20, whatever that is, we can make those choices.
Yeah.
And once we can make those choices, there are very few circumstances that we're actually 100% a victim. Usually we're 100% involved, whether we're conscious of it or not. So becoming conscious of our participation in the creation of our own reality is really the work. So am I afraid of being taken advantage of? No, because if it happens, it's going to be information for me about myself. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. And everything leads to the next place.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if it wasn't for Paul Anderson, that's the dead husband. If it wasn't for Paul Anderson, then I actually wouldn't have ended up coming to California. You know, we wind crooked paths that lead us to the next right place.
Yep.
Is my opinion. So
yep.
It's very little I'm afraid of. You know, I was talking about being undefended last week, because that's really my goal in this next phase of my life, is to become undefended, because there's very little to be afraid of. Life is fatal. We're going to die. I've done the best I can to continue to make peace with that reality. And after that, everything else is kind of cake. And there's very little that could happen to me that hasn't already happened to me twice. And I've survived it. So I don't know what I'm afraid of. I still have fear. Don't kid yourself. I mean, that's some of the work is to move outside of these patterned habits of defending myself that actually stop me from being able to engage with people in the way I want.
How do those defenses come up?
For me, the main way that defenses come up is I'm an internal pessimist and an external optimist. So I tend to, in some ways, expect the best and put my best out to make the world a better place. That's something certainly my mother left with me. If there's like an epitaph with my very, very trying relationship with my dead mother, lots of dead people in my life, it's to leave the world better than how you found it. But I internally, like my own internal wounded little inner child, is always like, it's never gonna work. So I'm always expecting to be rejected. I always expect things to go the wrong way. Secretly, it's a secret. Yeah. Don't tell anyone. But we're on a podcast. I'm telling everyone. So how I manage that and how I defend myself from that is to kind of expect and run through all the terrible things that could happen. And then to try to make plans to be able to manage the terrible things that will happen. Yeah. And once I feel like those plans are in place, then I can go forward.
Okay.
But
does that work for you?
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. As a matter of fact, when I was writing the book, I had to write about it in the fear section. And I tell this story. My son's in high school, and he came home. He was taking an abnormal psychology class. And he said, Mom, we learned today that fear of torture is actually worse than torture itself. Like or fear of pain is worse than the pain itself. And I was like, dude, I didn't need to read that in a book. I know that. Because one of the problems with defense is that I'm in a negative expectation. So I'm in a place of fear and defending myself. And my body experience and even my mental and emotional experience can be like it's happening. Like if I'm assuming that you're going to reject me, I'm in that place of actually feeling rejected, even if you aren't rejecting me. So I'm experiencing this like negative reality that's totally in my head. It's totally a fantasy. The idea is to protect myself from getting rejected. And I'm actually having the experience of being rejected, even though it's not happening. So I'm actually creating the thing that I don't want to have happen to try to defend myself from it. Does that make sense? Like it's crazy. And it's the idea, I think Carl Jung the famous therapist said, we cause ourselves more distress by trying to avoid authentic suffering than if we just went through the authentic suffering itself. Like if I could I actually don't get rejected very often because I'm pretty nice and people like me, but I spend a lot of time pretending or expecting to be rejected. If I could actually just be undefended, the amount of time I would spend in actual authentic rejection is minimal.
Yeah.
And then I could just get over it, as opposed to spending, 80% of my time protecting myself, expecting to be rejected.
Yep.
Does that, it's,
yeah.
That's why I'm a therapist, because I'm still crazy. All therapists are crazy. Don't kid yourself.
Isn't everybody crazy?
Yes. Some people are just in denial.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, there may be a few, the self-proclaimed enlightened people. I don't know. I've only ever been with one.
But then isn't being self-proclaimed enlightened crazy?
It is. That would be. Yeah. I had the really amazing opportunity of spending 3 weeks in retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk.
When was this?
Yeah, that was in 1987.
Wow.
It was before. No, I'm sorry. 1997. In fact, they wrote a book about the retreat. It's the only 3-week retreat that they've done of that kind in North America.
What?
Yeah. People came from all over the world. It was in Vermont. It was amazing.
Holy
Changed my life.
shit.
Yeah. And
Were
they
you
wrote
in Boston at that time or here?
I did. I lived in Boston. Okay. I moved out to San Francisco in 1999. And the book is called The Path of Emancipation.
Okay.
And it is a transcript of all of the Dharma talks that he gave over those 3 weeks. He gave a Dharma talk every day. And so I got to be really in close proximity with him and with the monks and nuns of Plum Village, which is his, I don't know if he calls it an ashram, but it's his place in southern France.
Okay.
And
it's not a bad place to have a quote unquote ashram.
I know the whole community came over, and we took over the University of Vermont.
Whoa!
For 3 weeks, it was stunning. Yeah. So he is probably not crazy. Yeah, but Ram Dass, who just died, I don't think Ram Dass was crazy. Like people that are really, really super present and have perspective on their crazy, I don't think they're crazy. I aspire to not be crazy. That's my goal. I don't know if I'll make it. I don't know if I have enough time, but we'll see.
That's funny. So the book. Yes.
So amazing.
So this is the first time that you ever published anything, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was the fear going into this writing, like being like, I kind of want to write a book? I know we touched on this in the first podcast, but what were the fears that arose when you thought about doing this? Then how did you walk through those?
So actually, the fear for me has been not writing the book. That's the fear.
Okay.
So, I tell this story because it's really profound, and it also it's aligned with the work that I do. That's very much about connecting with parts of ourselves that have wisdom to offer us. And so I was sitting in my beautiful house in San Francisco and looking out at the ocean. We had just gotten back from Europe. I'm like a prisoner of a privileged life. I have 2 dogs, 2 kids, 2 trucks, 2 houses. I have 2 of everything. And I'm suicidal. Yeah. And I want to die. And so exterior, everything's great. Mm-hmm. Interior, it's like a desert. Mm. And it's not the first time I've been to that place. And I did a little meditation, like, what is this about? And I have a meditation like this on my website. It's called A Journey to Your 100-Year-Old Self. And my 100-year-old self showed up at the end of my life. And she said, girl, you're at that point, I was 52. You're either going to do the thing or you're not going to do the thing. The thing being really express yourself and bring yourself in the world in an authentic way. Like you're either going to do your work in the world or you're not. You're going to do the scary thing or you're not. And if you don't do it, when we die, it's going to be a thumbs down because you're going to fail me. You're going to fail your deepest self. And that's the person that I really need to answer to, is my own soul at the end of my life. Forget how everybody else sees me. It's really how I feel about myself at the end of the day. And it was a profound experience. She remains with me right now. She's quite pleased, actually, about what's happened. And but that was the driving force that I often do think about my life as a whole continuum. I hold the idea that life is fatal and I'm going to die and how much time do I have left and how am I going to spend that? It's a way I've been taught to think strategically about my life as this unit. Like I believe that we're all aspects of divinity, and I get this one opportunity to be Renee McKenna in this little body, in this, I believe there's other iterations that are going to happen, but this is the only time I get this shot. And what am I going to do with it? And so, yeah, it might sound funny, but that was the driving fear, is that I wouldn't do the thing and I would be disappointed. And
that doesn't sound funny at all, by the way.
Yeah, no, I have to say it really felt like both my parents died at age 72.
Wow.
And I really believe that if I didn't pursue my deepest dreams, my deepest calling, that I would probably get cancer and die young. Not that everybody that gets cancer and die young isn't living out their life purpose. But for me, without that, life was empty. And if life is meaningless, I am an internally driven person. If my life, it doesn't matter what the external is.
What do you mean internally?
My internal experience is the most important thing to me. How I feel, my engagement with life. I can sleep in the back of my car. I don't really care about my circumstances. It's how I feel about what's happening and how I'm interacting with life and with other people. So the fear was to not do it. Then, of course, once I realized I need to do this, I've only had this experience a couple times in my life where it was like a calling, like it was clear, you need to do this. And when that happens, and when the universe offers me, or requests me to do something and I say yes, life shows up to make that happen easily and naturally. That's been my experience. Doors open where there were walls before, and people show up. And really within 2 weeks, I had a ghostwriter, and I had a team of people and a network of people that were actually working about time management and a whole team of, I ended up with an action partner that we did daily things to daily action items, because I had to walk through 100,000 tiny fears.
Yeah.
But the tiny fears are all manageable if we take them one at a time with the help of other people. This has been such a group effort for me. There is a team of people, which is part of the reason it actually felt appropriate for me to have a big party, because I did not write this book by myself. My thank you list is long, and there's a lot of people that didn't even make it onto it, of all the people that supported me during this process. And so much of my work is about, the whole message of Allies and Demons is about being willing to accept help, to accept spiritual help, to accept help from humans, to connect with our allies, to be able to face and dissolve our demons, which is our fears and our dysfunctions and the things that block us. And so I get to really walk through that process and live in color in writing the book. And it's books too. So there was a first book that came out of this 8-month process with a ghostwriter. And of course, the amount of money he needed was exactly the amount of money I had saved in the bank. Stuff like that. It was just all green lights and perfect. And I went for it. And
so with a ghostwriter, were you just giving ideas and they were writing it? Or how did that collaboration work between you and the ghostwriter?
So I just got to talk to him the other day, John Selby. He's a brilliant ghostwriter. And put a plug for John Selby. If anybody needs a ghostwriter, he's fabulous. He lives in Santa Cruz. He and his wife Brigida work as a team. Fabulous.
Wow.
So the way that it worked for us, and it's different for different people. Some people do that; they just give ideas. What John and I decided to do is we met over the phone a couple days a week, and I would record and transcribe our conversations.
Okay.
Because I didn't even know what the book specifically was going to be about. I have a lot of history and a lot of experience and a lot of different expertise. And I felt like I was emptying my closet. If you've ever sorted out all your clothes and moved, like you empty everything out onto the bed, and then it's like, this goes to Goodwill, this goes to Salvation Army, this goes back in the closet. This
I need
goes
to do that right now.
So this felt very much like that, of just dumping all these different ideas that I had, and different, some of them were very well thought out things that I contemplate in myself or journal about, but hadn't really discussed with another person. And that was some of the work, was to bring out what's within me. I think that's our work as humans, is to bring our authentic self, to bring out what's within us out in service of others and ourselves.
Okay.
And so
how long did it take for you meeting up with John to come up with the premise of the book?
It was probably 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months?
It was probably 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, we started to meet in August of 80. We started to meet in August of 17. And by January of 18, we had an outline that at that point was 20 chapters that landed us with a book that was about 300 pages.
Shit.
Yeah. And he, worked with all of, I would edit out. We edited together. So there was all this transcribed material, and we did a lot of editing together. And then he strung it all together into a book format, which he did brilliantly.
Wow.
And he gave me a transcript on April 1st of 2018.
Oh my God.
And I hated it.
Really quick, I can hardly even make it through a book, let alone having to reread and take things out.
Well, so John mostly did that process.
Okay.
He did that at that point. He did that editing process for me. I wasn't capable of doing it at that point.
Right.
When I started to read through what he had put together, I hated it. And it has nothing to do with him. It was actually, in some ways, still the quality of what was coming out of me, which felt super intellectual. There's been this whole developmental process for me to learn how to connect kind of my interior life, like my heart and my soul and my belly, and get that to come out my mouth, especially in written form. Yeah, there's been, people talk about finding their voice, and it is actually true. Like, I'm trying to do that verbally now to try to to get my voice to the position where I can do an audiobook. Because I can talk like this, but actually doing an audiobook is it's a little flat. But anyway, I have hope because of this other process that I'll be able to develop that skill. So now I can sit down and write, and it's a voice that I like. But that first book was not a voice that I liked at all.
Okay.
At all. And so then I hired another person because I found out I can't work by myself.
Yep.
I cannot. It won't happen. I tried to edit by myself. I tried to write this book by myself, and it didn't happen. And so I had to be willing to ask for help, and the help was there. So I hired another editor who happens to be a really good friend of mine. And we worked together for the next 18 months to create the book that's now Allies and Demons. And it ended up with 10 chapters. And the first process was imperative for the second process to happen. So it's a completely different book.
Yeah.
But it gave me the skeleton that I needed. I knew the direction I was going. I knew what the book was going to be about. And then it was the actual formation of it, where we did daily editing of reading through, cutting stuff out. It was a huge learning process that now I'm good at. And I mean, it was, thank goodness for Google Docs, because so we would work together. Again, I worked remotely with both these people. We would work on a Google Doc together.
Oh, wow.
And read it. And eventually, when you work with someone long enough, then it became seamless. Like we were like one person where she'd be working on one end, I'm working on another. We would do da, 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 da. So going over and over, you know, I'm not a perfectionist. I used to be. I've beaten that out of myself. The way I do art, actually, I intentionally beat my perfectionism out of myself because perfectionism is the death of creativity and authenticity. It's the death of it. It's all about pleasing another person for me. And some perfection, even as an idea, is ridiculous. It doesn't exist. I think uniqueness is much more interesting.
How'd you beat it out of yourself?
Well, with painting, I was working at the preschool and, you know, working with little kids who were just interested in color and process.
Yeah.
And so I put my brushes away and I started to pour paint and just work with my hands. I put on gloves and I smear the paint around and just have fun with the paint and see what the paint wants to do and enjoy the color and have this really free, where I used to be, you know, a portrait artist that was like trying to get it exact and it was never good enough and blah. So after 10 years of working like that, I'm actually ready to go back to try to do portraits from this place of forget perfection. It's not even interesting, perfectionism. It's not even interesting to me. It's way too uptight. And I'm much more interested in quirky uniqueness. So that, and I've also, I think, I mean, you very generously suggested this at the beginning. I like to get stuff done. So, you know, for me, it was about, I want to get this book out. Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect. There is no perfect. It's good enough. And I'm surprised I actually stuck with it enough. And luckily my editor was enough of a detail-oriented person that where I had been willing to just put out a good enough book, I believe I've actually put out an excellent book, which is pretty cool. Yeah. After iteration and iteration. I mean, the people that are close to me are so sick of me saying this is the final draft. It's like been 7 months of final draft. Like this is the final edit. The final edit. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous how many iterations of the book there are. But what's up there now is done, and I'm not going back. And it's great.
Yeah, it's printed. It's out.
It's printed. It's out, and it's exciting, and it's good work. I feel good about it. Yeah, I feel good. I mean, now, though you talk about fear, like I have been struggling. This is why I was talking about being undefended last week, because I really want to practice what I preach. I want to do what I teach and bring out, this is my authentic self. This is my experience into the world, and just let it go where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And not have it be attached to my own ego identification with myself, that like, oh, do you like the book? Is it good? And if you like it, that means I'm good. Or, you know, some, because it's not about that. That's really not, it's not about being good. Like I work with that. I teach art to kids in elementary school a couple days a month. And I try to squish that out of them of like, Ms. McKenna, do you like this? It doesn't matter if I like it. That's not art. Like art is an expression of yourself. It may be beautiful. It may be ugly. It may be moving. It may be disturbing. Like all of that has value.
Yeah.
And to just let it be. And that's the challenge. That's the undefended part, to not take it personally, whatever people's own perceptions of my work is. Or of me. I mean, that's like the work, right? Is to just be who we are in the world and let it fall where it's going to fall and trust that that's an authentic process. Okay. And that will lead us where we need to be. I mean, that's the hero's journey. That's a challenge.
Teach me. Well, I always like, before putting anything out or even doing anything, like searching for that external validation, and it's just draining. Well, you know, external validation, in my experience, doesn't actually touch the part of me that needs to be validated. Yeah. People can never tell me I'm pretty enough or good enough or smart enough or amazing enough. Like it just never really reaches that place that's
eternally hungry for that. And that's the idea of shifting from what can I get from a situation to what can I bring is really the solution for that for me. When I consider the positioning of I want to bring my best self into this place and see what I have to offer here, there's fulfillment that comes just from that positioning, just from that attitude. If I'm looking for something, it's generally never enough.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a conundrum of life, but that's kind of my experience. And I think it's something we all work with as humans. Because we do have authentic needs too. It's not like, again, we need to be able to receive and give, but there are those places of like validation. Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. Not that I didn't call up my longest friend last week and tell her, I'm feeling all insecure. I'm having my book party tomorrow night. And she told me how amazing I was for 20 minutes. And it helped. It was good. So maybe, because I know she loves me. And that's, yeah. So I don't know.
What's your relationship with death? Like,
I have a really funky relationship with death.
Okay.
So
it just popped into my mind for some odd reason. So yeah, I just want to know. Because I haven't known a lot of people who have died. And you have.
Oh yeah. I got so many dead people. Oh my God. When I was going through, I texted almost everyone in my phone who I thought would be interested. And it took me a whole day to reach out to everyone in my phone. And there was so many dead people still in my phone. And I can't take them out. I just don't want to take them out. Anyway, yeah, the dress I wore that night was actually from one of my best friends who died about 8 years ago of colon cancer. Yeah, Lori. I wore the dress she wore to my wedding.
Wow.
Yeah. It's because I wanted her to be at my party. That's how I bring her to my party. So I have to say, the very first thing that comes to me is when you say, what's my relationship with death, is that I love death. I feel like death is my friend if I approach it in that way. Well, it's not even like if I approach it in that way. I've always felt that way. I've always been fascinated by death. And I've birthed 2 children and had this experience on both ends of it. Because I've been with people that have died and I've been with people that were born. And there's a doorway, a spiritual doorway that the soul enters through and leaves through. And I think might be a different entrance than an exit. I think the doorways maybe, but I think they go to the same place essentially. And being able to peek through that door is fascinating to me. So I'm just going to be completely real here. I always feel funny talking about this because it seems weird, but I am actually excited to die. I don't want to rush it. I was saying to my kids last night, we were talking about it. And why were we talking about it? Because my ex-husband, he was having dinner with us, happiest divorce ever. And he was talking about how he's preparing to retire. And he was talking about how this guy that just retired died. And like, what a bummer, right? So you work all these years and then you retire and then you drop dead. Yikes. And he had cancer. And I said, that's how I want to die. I want to have cancer and die. Because I want to know beforehand that I'm going to die. And my daughter goes, so you can have a party, huh, Mom? And I said, yeah, I'm going to have a death party. I want to know like 3 to 6 months. And then I can plan a party so I can say goodbye and thank you to everybody. So, and do it consciously. And I would actually hope, and my intention would be actually to die without drugs, to die without pain drugs, and to really be able to consciously experience, because I think the pain of death is part of the letting go of our body experience that makes us willing. And because I do believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I do believe in the continuity of the soul. And I didn't until I started to do the allies and demons work and work shamanically, where I have all these experiences with the dead who are still available. I have better relationships with a lot of my dead people now that they're dead than I did when they were living. And I mean, when you start to get into this realm, it gets a little funky because, again, I'm going to refer to Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. You know, I think there is a concept that time is a concept. Time is a construct. It's a mental construct. I don't think we can conceptualize of it because of the way that our limited brain, but I do believe that all time is present time. And that on some level, everything that's ever happened is happening at the same time, like that all time is available to us. I have that experience in my work a lot with psychological time with people where we go to their wounding and it's like it's happening right now. There is no time in psychological time. And I think it's true spiritually with death as well. So I'm very curious to see what happens. I want to do it as consciously as I can. I always have this image. There was a book and there was a movie with Michael Keaton, and I forget the name of it. So he dies. The whole thing is about he finds out he has cancer and he's going to die, and at the end of the movie he dies. But he's on a roller coaster when he dies. It's like going down a big hill. Whee! And I feel like that, like, oh, it's like a jumping off place, and I like to jump off of high places. So that's the actual death experience I find very interesting. And I think how we die and our attitude at the moment of death, and there's a lot of deep Buddhist philosophy, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, that speaks to that too, that how we are at the moment of our death has a lot to do with our rebirth. It's a whole theory.
Interesting.
But so dying well is very important to me. But death itself, as a practical experience, as a living person, is so instructive. Death teaches us how to live. If there wasn't an ending point, then we could take everything for granted. If I knew that I was always going to have my children and my dog and my in-laws and the people that I love in my life, then I might not have the impetus to make sure they know how I feel about them every time I see them. And because I've had so many people pass in my life, I know that I don't know when I'm going to see someone again. And so it really...
Does that change your relationships with people?
Of course.
Do you think about it a lot? Or?
I do.
Okay.
All the time. All the time. Yeah. I want to make sure you know that I love you and how important you are. I don't want anything to be unsaid. The one thing I hate regret. I aspire to live without regret, which is actually, again, the impetus for writing the book. I want to have no regrets. And I have to say, I have very few. That's a whole nother show. I don't even know if I have any, to tell you the truth. Because the things I've regretted, I've actually done a lot of work to shift my attitude toward them so that I can understand that that's now a nourishing part of my life. But no, I try to have no regrets with anyone. So I don't want to have anything unsaid. I don't like to have things, if I have an amend to make, I try to make it right away. If things feel unsettled, I try to clear it. Because I like to be clean. Yeah. I don't want to have regret. So I love death. I think that I find, so again, I work shamanically, and we work with archetypes. We work with lots of different forms where everything in the unseen world can be seen, in a way, if you're a visual person, or experienced certainly in form. And I work with death actually as a guide, and it looks very much like the Grim Reaper, and which is interesting. That wasn't my intention. It's not an image that I was associated with at all. And it's one of the most loving and compassionate and gentle and powerful guides that I have. Is death. Yeah. Even though it's a creepy skeleton in a black cloak with a staff, but it's incredibly loving and powerful. Yeah. So I have a deep relationship with death, and it doesn't make me sad. I mean, that's one of the things that's weird about it. Death has never made me sad. It just feels like, I certainly have a lot of compassion for people who get sad, and it's not like I don't cry when people die or my pets have died and feel like some level of sadness, but I don't ever feel like death is a tragedy.
Okay.
Ever. Because I think that because I believe in the continuity of the soul. and we have whatever, if we have 7 years here or if we have 78 years here, that's our work this time around. Yeah. I mean, I started a whole series of work, actually. I do paintings with people's cremation ashes. Whoa. I call them sacred ash paintings. Yeah. Wow. It's on my Facebook. It's on my website. It's not, anyway, it's not something that I promote a lot because it's a particular thing. It's very sacred. And I had a friend who got pregnant with her third child, and when the baby was 5 months old, they found out that she had a really, really serious congenital heart defect that she would probably need multiple surgeries throughout her life, maybe even one a year. Wow. And that she would not probably live past the age of 20.
Oh my gosh.
And she had these two children that were toddlers at the time, and they sat long and hard and decided to end the pregnancy and to kill the baby. Yeah. And it was because it was the best for everybody involved. And it was one of the most transformative and powerful experiences. It changed her life. And it became, and they actually, because the baby was big enough, so they had the baby cremated. And
did she have to deliver the baby?
Yes. Yeah. And so she didn't want to have she didn't want to talk about it to a lot of people. But she wanted to honor this soul that really came to feel like an angel for her because of the level of transformation that happened. It felt like this baby had volunteered for this service to come and be with her for this period of time and to have her go through this transformative process. So it was a real spiritual awakening for her, the level of support that she felt. And so she had these ashes. She didn't know what to do with them. And I said, why don't I make a painting? And I know where that painting hangs in her house. And no one has to know what it is. It's kind of abstract. It's a beautiful pink and green. And because it was a baby girl. And that when I felt into the spirit of that baby, it was like an angel. So you could say it's a tragedy. The baby was here for 5 months, but I think we're all just visitors, at any given time. So that's my, I don't know. I certainly don't say that to people who are in their suffering because it's my own opinion and I'm allowed to have my own perspective on it and my own experience. I make tons of room for other people to have their own, and I have a lot of compassion for people's different experiences that are different than mine. So.
Wow. Beautiful. Yeah, we have ashes at our home where I grew up, and my mom just keeps hanging on to them. And they sit in a little box, and that's a beautiful way to do something with the ashes besides, sprinkling them in a field or just holding on to them for 20 years.
I have so many ashes here. It's crazy.
Of other people? Yeah. Of other people's other people?
Downstairs, yeah. I have a whole shelf with ashes. Yeah.
Waiting to be painted or just chilling? Well,
one of the things that happens is, so when you there's a lot of ash, actually. So there's a fairly substantial amount of ash when someone dies, much more than can go into a painting. So yes, I have had people give me too much ashes and then they don't really want them back. I have to tell this story now. So that first husband, the sociopath one who was really handsome.
Yep.
So we divorced in 1996, and I didn't have any contact with him after. And he was always kind of off the grid anyway. And every once in a while, I would try to Google him or whatever and see where he was just to check up on him. And I Googled him one night, and I guess this was probably about 8 years ago. I Googled him, and his obituary came up.
Oh my God.
And I wasn't shocked because I know how he lived. But I was like, oh, and it turned out he had died 2 years before. And so this was like in 2012, whatever. So I Facebooked his sister, my ex-sister-in-law, and it was late at night. and she lives in the Midwest, so the timing was off. And the next day, she called me because I had given her my phone number. And she said, Renee, you won't believe what I'm doing. Now, he was dead 2 years. She said, I'm in New Hampshire right now spreading Paul's ashes.
Whoa.
This weekend. Right. So no coincidences, right? No coincidences. And I felt, so underneath all his craziness, he had a part of him that was he was a sick person. He was a really loving person. Like, I felt like he was making amends to me. It was a really beautiful experience. So we have this long talk. She says, I looked at your Facebook page before I called you, and I noticed that you do these sacred ash paintings. Would you be willing to do a series of ash paintings with Paul's ashes for our family?
What?
Yeah. So she sent me my ex-husband's ashes.
Wow.
And I made a series of 3 paintings for him, for her dad, and for her brother, with his ashes. And
so what does having the paintings do to the person with the ashes on it? I feel like when somebody goes to a field with ashes, they're like letting go, and like it's sort of resembles to me like a moving on, right? So when somebody has those ashes in a painting on their wall, what does that do to the person?
Well, so I can't speak.
What do you think the reaction?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I know, again, for myself, that there is, I guess in a way, letting go and holding on is a dance that we do with the dead. And so I need to let go. Like, I think of my girlfriend, Lori. I think of Paul. I think of my parents, my dogs, a whole bunch of people that have died. I think of, I need to let go of my possibility of having daily interaction with them and the physical connection that I would have with them and the habitual responses that we would have with each other. And yet I don't want to let go of their memory, or for me, what actually feels like a living experience of the person. That, it is through ancestor worship is one of the oldest forms of spiritual practice. And, I think when we honor the dead, their spirit is available to us. And so, when I wore Lori's dress, like, I feel like I was calling Lori here. Now, whatever that means for me, it's meaningful to me. And so I'm keeping Lori alive by honoring her memory, because she was this amazing person. And she continues, the things that were great about her continue to inspire me and inform me today, even though she's dead and I can't call her up. And, it's the same with my mother. I mean, I did not have a good relationship with my mother in life, but through a lot of weeding out work, I really feel like I've been able to clarify the essence of what was best about what my mother gave me that I want to keep, and that I can honor those things and keep her spirit alive by honoring those things going forward in my own life. So for me, and I have made ash paintings of my mother. I have ash paintings from my dog. I have ash paintings from my ex-husband's father. And those are some of the ones we have here. And for me, it's like, well, I really love ritual, and ritual for me is about bringing the unseen world into the seen world, about bridging the spiritual world, the transpersonal realm into the physical reality. And to me, it makes a much richer, it provides resources for us that we don't have if we're just in our material reality. And so for me, ash paintings are part of that. It's honoring the dead, honoring the spirit, what's best about that person, adds the essence, like the positive essence of them. It brings that, it keeps it present here for me. Like that's what that's about. It isn't, and it can be different for different people, but I think there's value in that. It feels like it adds a richness and more flavor and color and depth and breadth to my repertoire of experience. Again, I talk to the dead all the time because I'm weird like that. And a lot of times I can really feel like they're here.
Yep.
And people have that with people they've loved. I mean,
Yep.
you know, my clients talk about it all the time. Their mother, you know, they'll have a reaction, you know, something that they should, purple butterflies, or, you know, and they'll see purple butterflies, and that's their mother. And they really feel that. Now, people can think whatever they want about that. I believe there's a lot more mysterious things happening than we can understand. And death is one of the main. No one gets out of here alive. That's going to be the title. Life is fatal. That's
Life is fatal.
That's going to be one of my books. Life is fatal. Yeah.
So what's after this? You just made a book.
So now it's really about, it's like a baby. And now it's about nurturing this baby into the world. And, you know, the book is a catalyst for this work. And I wrote the book, but I didn't make up this work. This is sacred work. This is ancient healing work. Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, shamanism, hypnotherapy, body-based mindfulness. You know, they're powerful things, working with ancestors, working with spirit, dissolving our demons, the hero's journey. You know, I didn't make any of that stuff up. I can point to it. And so, you know, my hope is that this book points to it in a way that's accessible and digestible and useful for people. And so, you know, the next part is really how to bring this out to the widest audience possible. I feel like it is time culturally for people to know that there's more happening than material prosperity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have hit the wall with that. I have clients come all the time who went to the best college and now they have a job at Facebook or Oracle or wherever in the tech, and they got the dream life, and they're miserable because they aren't connected with their authentic self. They aren't connected. I believe we are all unique aspects of divinity that have some purpose here. And I don't think it's just one purpose. I think we're part of a fabric. And when we can actually participate in that process, that's our joy and fulfillment. And so that's my greatest hope, is that people can have the experience that I have had from this work. And, you know, I'm like a poster child for the work. And I hope that I can do that adequately, and to be able to bring this amazing light into the darkness that a lot of people are experiencing. Because I know that that's what happened for me. So lots of work to bring this out. I have high ambitions. I hope to bring this work to Europe. I want to bring it to Indigenous people who have lost their traditions, and hopefully give them a program and a platform digitally. That I had an opportunity to be in Alaska and connect with a native healing center up there. And I'm hoping to be able to offer this work as a program to return people to their own shamanic roots up there. And because this work isn't dependent on me. Again, I've just provided an outline and a platform for it, and given words to something that is way, you know, I'm humbled by this work. I hope that what I have produced is adequate to do that. So that's the next 25 years of my life, is bringing this work out to others.
Beautiful. So wrapping this up, Renee's on her deathbed.
Here I am.
Happy as can be.
Thumbs up. Yay, we're having a big party.
What is some other things in your life that, if not completed or fulfilled, would you give yourself a thumbs down to?
Ooh, I want to learn another language.
What language?
I don't even care. I mean, Spanish and German are really up for me right now, because I'm planning a destination trip to Spain in September, and to interact with the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage path that I coincidentally have a friend who bought a house on it. And so and he wants to have a retreat center. So I'm looking to do a week-long retreat in September to Spain. I'm surrounded by Germans. And there were like 9 people at my party who either live in Germany or are returning to Germany or are rooted in Germany. And my my ghostwriter's wife was from Germany. And so there's been a whole German thing happening. And I had an opportunity to go to Germany a couple of years ago. I fell in love with Germany and the German people. So probably Spanish and German are the two. Okay. Although I'd love to learn Arabic and return to learning Russian again. But okay. That's my only thumbs down, because I think that being able to speak another language is like being able to experience life through a different lens, because each culture and each language has a different color or a different pair of glasses that you see the world through. And I love to see the world through different lenses. So at this point, that's my only regret, is that I don't speak a second language.
That's not that bad of a regret.
No, I'll be fine.
That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, I think I have two more questions. What is somebody listening right now who lives more in that material world that you were talking about, like somebody who works at Google or LinkedIn or Facebook, who is more obsessed with material objects and doesn't know anything about this world that you're speaking about, like connecting with spirits and allies and demons? What is one thing that they can do right now to take one step closer to that journey?
Well, I mean, I would say if material prosperity fulfills you, then that's fine. Then there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I have lots of friends actually that happily work at Facebook. But I think that if you have suffering, then the seeds of the suffering provide their own medicine. So if there is angst, if there's depression, if there's discontent, if there's fear, then that can be solved. But it's solved from the inside out. It's an inside job. And so we can look to our suffering to provide the path to our solution. And so, if there's no suffering, then excellent. That's awesome. Then you're good. But if there's suffering, then I believe our job is to resolve that, because it's a call. Suffering, pain, struggle is a call that something's wrong. And that's the call to grow and evolve, because we are on an evolutionary path. The universe is still expanding. So if there's suffering, look to your suffering internally, and that will show you where you need to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
ReneeMcKenna.com.
Okay.
Or email me at info@ReneeMcKenna.com.
And your book, Allies and Demons.
Allies and Demons, Working with Spirit for Power and Healing, is available on my website, through my website, and also on Amazon. Amazon, self-published. It's pretty amazing. KDP is amazing. And I have a lot of workshops coming up. I have Your Boat, Your Compass workshop for setting goals and intentions from your authentic self on January 25th, 2020. It's going to be here at my workshop space at my house, and that's going to have a 6-month follow-up of an open Facebook, a closed Facebook group, and monthly check-ins, so that so that your boat has support and the compass setting keeps getting recalibrated. And then I have a lot of other workshops coming up. Transforming the inner critic into an ally, and working with your inner child. That's going to be in February. Okay. And so, lots of great workshops coming up. And
cool. Where can people find these?
So again, they can look on my website at ReneeMcKenna.com.
And you have the workshops there.
And the workshops are on there, and there's Eventbrite to sign up. And
beautiful.
Awesome. And I have a weekly podcast myself, Spiritual Psychology, that people can also find on my web. Everything's on the web.
I'm proud of you. You did it.
You were a big part of it, Scott. Yeah. Really? No, you more than once held my hand when I was a wreck. And if it doesn't kill us, it makes us stronger. And I'm stronger. It's good. Yeah. Do the hard thing. Do the scary thing is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for showing me how it's done. Appreciate it.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.